Your algorithm is nothing but a fantasy. It'll never survive a day in real medicine. My brother Rohan's voice sliced through our family's Thanksgiving dinner, shattering the fragile peace as sharply as the crystal wine glass he'd nearly slammed down. Only 8 hours stood between this bitter moment and the quiet vindication waiting on my desk. Acquisition papers that would crown me as the youngest self-made billionaire in healthcare technology. Microsoft had secretly agreed to buy Provino, my revolutionary predictive diagnosis AI, for $3.7 billion. Yet, around this table, under my family's critical gaze, I remained the prodigal daughter, the med school dropout who played with computers. I'm Nina G., 32, holder of 2 advanced computer science degrees and an MBA, credentials my traditional Indian-American family dismissed as second-rate compared to Rohan's flawless medical resume. 5 painstaking years of sleepless nights and relentless skepticism had gone into Provino, a groundbreaking system that analyzed subtle physiological cues, predicting severe medical conditions months before conventional diagnostics caught up. But tonight, facing my family's judgmental silence, success felt like my best-kept secret, one I wasn't sure they deserved to know. Not yet. If you love stories of resilience, reclaiming justice with style, and rediscovering your worth, hit that subscribe button for Graceful Revenge now. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Let's dive into the power of elegant revenge and life's deepest lessons together. The human body is too complex for algorithms to understand, Rohan continued, gesturing with his fork for emphasis. Real medicine requires years of training and clinical experience, not coding shortcuts. Around our parents' dining table sat the familiar audience for this well-worn lecture. Mom and Dad beamed with pride at their son, the cardiac surgeon. Rohan's wife, Annika, a pediatrician. My younger sister Maya, who was finishing her residency, and my grandmother, who still asked when I would find a nice doctor to marry, since I'd abandoned becoming one myself. No one mentioned that Rohan's hospital was facing a malpractice lawsuit for a misdiagnosis that my technology could have prevented. No one knew that major hospitals across 3 continents were already quietly using Proveno's Nina system, with early detection rates that outperform traditional methods by 62%. "How is your computer project going?" my father asked, clearly trying to include me in the conversation, while carefully avoiding any suggestion that it might actually be successful. "It's going well," I replied neutrally, taking another bite of my mother's biryani. The confidentiality agreement in my laptop bag prohibited me from discussing the acquisition until the formal announcement tomorrow morning. "Just well?" Rohan pressed, always ready to underscore my perceived underachievement. "Still working out of that incubator space downtown? How many employees do you have now?" 56. "We've expanded a bit," I said, thinking of our sleek headquarters, with its staff of 87 engineers, data scientists, and medical researchers. The building Rohan had never bothered to visit despite my invitations. "You know," my mother interjected with familiar concern, "Dr. Neal's son has an opening at his healthcare management firm. Very stable, good benefits." I smiled politely. "Thanks, Mom, but I'm committed to Provino." "Committed to what exactly?" Rohan challenged. "Your algorithm looks at, what? Heart rate, blood pressure, skin temperature? These are rudimentary indicators that tell us almost nothing definitive without proper medical context. You're selling false hope to patients and investors." What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Provino's system incorporated over 347 physiological and behavioral indicators, most imperceptible to human observation. We trained our AI on anonymized data from millions of patient records, identifying patterns that preceded serious conditions long before they became clinically apparent. Actually, Maya spoke up unexpectedly, I read an interesting paper about predictive healthcare AI in the New England Journal last month. She glanced at me. Is that the kind of thing you're working on, Nina? Before I could answer, Rohan interrupted. Those systems are toys, barely past the research stage. Real medical professionals understand that diagnosis requires presence, intuition, a human touch. My phone vibrated with a text from Leo. My CTO, final acquisition papers ready for your signature. Legal says everything looks perfect. Would you excuse me? I stood, leaving the familiar weight of disappointment at the table. I needed to make a quick call. In my childhood bedroom, now converted to a guest room, but still lined with my academic awards, all seemingly diminished by my decision to leave medical school, I sat on the edge of the bed and called Leo. How's the family dinner going? He asked, already knowing exactly what these gatherings were like after 5 years as my right-hand person. The usual, I sighed. My existence is a disappointment to medical science, apparently. Well, Microsoft disagrees, to the tune of $3.7 billion. Leo laughed. Legal says the announcement is locked for 9 a.m. Eastern. You ready for this? Was I ready? 5 years of work, of doubt, of being dismissed by my family and the medical establishment, culminating in vindication on a scale I had hardly dared imagine. More than ready, I replied. I'll sign everything first thing tomorrow. When I returned to the dining room, the conversation had moved on to Maya's residency challenges. No one asked about my call. No one ever did. Nina, will you be at the Medical Association dinner next month? My mother asked as we cleared the plates. Rohan is receiving an innovation award for his cardiac procedure techniques. The irony wasn't lost on me. My brother was being celebrated for innovation in a field that would be transformed by the technology he dismissed. My technology. I might be traveling, I answered truthfully. After tomorrow's announcement, I had meetings scheduled across Europe with healthcare systems eager to implement Previno's platform. Always too busy with that startup to support family, my mother sighed, not quite under her breath. Later, as I prepared to leave, Rohan cornered me near the door. Listen, I'm saying this as your brother. Who cares about you? He began, his tone softening into what I recognized as his bedside manner. These tech startups, they're unstable. 90% fail. You're brilliant, Nina. You always have been. It's not too late to come back to medicine, to do something meaningful. I looked at my brother, Harvard Medical School, youngest chief of cardiology in his hospital's history, our parents' unquestioned success story, and felt a moment of genuine pity. I am doing something meaningful, Rohan, I said quietly. You might want to watch the business news tomorrow. His brow furrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Just a suggestion, I replied, kissing our mother goodbye and heading to my car. The drive to my downtown apartment gave me time to reflect on the journey that had led to this moment. The idea for Previno had come during my second year of medical school, when a classmate collapsed during an exam from a congenital heart condition that had gone undiagnosed, despite regular checkups. Reviewing his case history later, I identified subtle indicators that had appeared in his routine vitals for months. Patterns too easily dismissed as normal variations, but which collectively formed a recognizable signature of his condition. What if an algorithm could see what human doctors missed? What if we could teach a system to recognize the complex patterns that preceded serious medical events, identifying risk factors before they became emergencies. My medical professors had dismissed the concept. My family had been horrified when I left medical school to pursue it. Only my grandfather, a brilliant engineer who had immigrated to America with nothing, had understood. "They laughed at me too, little one," he had told me before he passed away. Every innovation begins as an impossibility. His life insurance policy had provided my seed funding. I arrived home to find a delivery waiting, champagne from Sarah Chin, the venture capitalist who had led our Series A funding round when no one else believed in us. No one else would touch a medical AI company founded by a failed medical student. The note from Sarah simply read, "To impossible things." Morning came with a flurry of texts and emails as the acquisition announcement hit the financial news. Microsoft acquires AI health startup Previno for $3.7 billion, splashed across Bloomberg, CNBC, and every major business outlet. My phone began ringing almost immediately. The first call wasn't from my family. It was from Dr. Arjun, chief of medicine at my brother's hospital. "Nina, I've just seen the news," he said, his voice warm with genuine enthusiasm. "We've been following Previno's development closely. I wanted to personally congratulate you and to discuss how we might implement your system here." The irony of potentially deploying my technology in the very hospital where my brother practiced wasn't lost on me. "I'd be happy to arrange a demonstration, Dr. Arjun." "Excellent. And perhaps you could present at our next innovation forum. Your brother Rohan speaks highly of your work." I nearly laughed aloud at the obvious lie. "I'd be delighted," I replied. After finishing the call, I checked my messages. There were congratulations from colleagues, investors, even former professors who had once questioned my decision. But nothing from my family. I wasn't surprised. They likely hadn't seen the news yet, still going about their morning routines, unaware that their failure daughter was now headline news. At 10:17 a.m., my mother finally called. "Nina!" Her voice sounded strange, almost hesitant. "Your father is reading something on his iPad about Microsoft and a company called Previno. It says you sold your company for billions. Is this true?" "Yes, Mom. The announcement went out this morning." Silence. "Billions with a B?" 3.7 billion to be exact. Another long pause. "But why didn't you tell us?" "I tried, Mom. For 5 years, I tried to explain what I was building. No one wanted to hear it." In the background, I could hear my father asking questions, my mother's muffled responses. Then my father came on the line. "Nina, this is extraordinary," he said, using his childhood nickname for me. "We had no idea your work was so significant." "I know, Dad." "We're very proud of you," he added, his voice catching slightly. Were they proud or just shocked? Did it matter? "Thank you," I said. "I have meetings all day, but maybe we can have dinner later this week." After finishing the call, I sat looking at my phone, expecting to hear from Rohan. Nothing came. The day passed in a blur of congratulatory calls, media inquiries, and meetings with the Microsoft integration team. By evening, I was mentally exhausted but too wired to sleep. I drove to Previno's headquarters, wanting to be in the space where we had built something that would change healthcare forever. Our lobby displayed a wall of testimonials, stories from early access patients whose conditions had been identified by our system months before traditional diagnostics would have caught them. Terminal illnesses caught early enough to treat, life-threatening events prevented. Real people with families who would have more time together because of what we had built. I thought I might find you here." I turned to find Rohan standing awkwardly by the entrance, still in his hospital scrubs. "How did you get in?" I asked. "Your security guard recognized me from your family photos." He gestured vaguely around the space. "This is impressive, much bigger than I imagined." I said nothing, waiting. "Dad showed me the acquisition news," he continued, moving further into the lobby. "Then Dr. Arjun called me into his office to discuss implementing your system at the hospital. He seemed surprised I hadn't told him my sister was the Nina G. The irony clearly wasn't lost on him. "I didn't know," he said finally, "about any of this. The scale of what you've built, the impact it's having." "You never asked," I replied simply. "None of you did?" He nodded, acknowledging the truth of it. "Can you show me how it works? Your algorithm?" For the next hour, I gave Rohan the demonstration I offered. Countless times over the years, each invitation was declined or ignored. I showed Rohan how our system integrated with hospital data systems, how it flagged subtle patterns, how it had already saved lives. "This would have caught the Henderson case," he said quietly, referring to the malpractice suit his hospital was facing. "We missed the indicators, all of them." "That's why I built it," I replied. "Not to replace doctors, but to see what humans can miss, to give patients more time." We stood side by side, looking at the wall of testimonials. "I was wrong," Rohan finally said. "Not just about your company, but about everything. I dismissed what you were doing because it didn't follow the path I understood. I couldn't see that you were creating a new path altogether." It wasn't quite an apology, but from Rohan, it was unprecedented. "There's something else," he continued, pulling a medical journal from his bag. "I want to show you a case I'm working on, a patient with unusual cardiac rhythms that don't match any known pattern. I've been wondering if your system if you might look at it with me." The gesture was small but significant. My brother, the cardiac surgeon, asking for my professional input, perhaps for the first time. "I'd be happy to," I said. 2 days later, my family gathered again, this time at an upscale restaurant downtown. The dynamics had shifted palpably. My parents, still processing the magnitude of the acquisition, vacillated between beaming pride and lingering confusion about exactly what I had built. "So Microsoft will use your algorithm in hospitals?" my mother asked, clearly trying to understand. "Yes," I said patiently. "Integrated with their healthcare systems. It will help doctors identify potential health issues earlier, allowing for preventive interventions instead of just reactive treatments. Like that case you helped Rohan with," my father added, nodding as if he'd understood all along. Rohan, for his part, seemed subdued, still reconciling his previous dismissal of my work with the reality of what Preveno had become. "Nina's system flagged indicators I hadn't connected," he admitted. "We're starting treatment protocols months earlier than we would have otherwise." "I always knew you were doing important work, Nina," my mother declared, conveniently rewriting history. "A brilliant doctor and a brilliant businesswoman." "I never finished medical school, Mom," I reminded her gently. "Details," she waved dismissively. "Now, about the Medical Association dinner next month. You must come. We'll make it a family celebration." Some things wouldn't change overnight. Perhaps they never would. But as dinner concluded and we stepped outside, Rohan pulled me aside. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began awkwardly, "about no one ever asking about your work. And you're right." We were all so caught up in our prescribed vision of success that we couldn't see you were redefining it. I nodded, acknowledging the truth of his words. I'd like to understand better, he continued. Not just the technology, but your journey. How you saw something none of us could see. For a moment, I was transported back to childhood. Rohan teaching me to ride a bike, helping with science projects. The brother who had once been my biggest champion before medical school became the measuring stick for success. I'd like that, I said. 6 months after the acquisition, I stood on stage at a major medical conference presenting Preveno's integration results from hospitals worldwide. In the front row sat my entire family. Yes, even my grandmother, who now proudly told her friends that her granddaughter was revolutionizing medicine with computers. The data was irrefutable. Early detection rates improved by 71%. Preventable hospitalizations reduced by 43%. Lives extended. Suffering prevented. Healthcare resources optimized. As questions came from the audience, including from several doctors who had initially dismissed our approach, I caught Rohan's eye. He gave me a small nod, a gesture that contained both professional respect and personal reconciliation. Success, I had learned, wasn't just about financial exits or professional accolades. It wasn't even about proving doubters wrong. It was about staying true to a vision. When no one else could see it, I was creating something that genuinely improved people's lives. Later that evening, at a dinner celebrating Preveno's expanding impact, my father raised his glass. "To Nina," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "who showed us that there are many paths to healing." I smiled, thinking of my grandfather and what he would make of this moment. Around the table sat my family, still imperfect in their understanding, but trying now in ways they hadn't before. Beside them were members of my team, the people who believed in Preveno from the beginning. 2 families, so different, yet both essential parts of my journey. Innovation isn't just about technology, it's about vision, resilience, and the courage to defy convention.